Good morning, weather fans, weather fanatics. How you doing? It's the Weather Mike, my brand new channel. This is fun. I did create the Twitter at the Weather Mike, so I think I have 0 tweets so far, 1 follower, someone who's asking me questions already. So maybe it's a little sus, but that's okay. That's how it works. Twitter X, we are there, and we are here on YouTube now with video number 2, and I'll have an update for you this afternoon too. Now, once I get back to work on Thursday, those release times are going to be probably evening, just because, got to work. Anyway, if you'd like to support the channel, like and subscribe. We're still talking about 2 snowstorms, 3 storms here in the next 10 days, 9 days, 8 days. So let's go through it. We'll start with the punchline. The difference in the models as far as snow cover goes from the 2 snowstorms that are coming. The first one for the Mid-South up through the East Coast. The second one for the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes. And this is how the Canadian sees it. So the bullseye, well, let's start with the East Coast. That'll be the first storm. We're talking a lot of snow there, West Virginia, Virginia, into Pennsylvania. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you see the snowfall amounts as per color. So we're talking West Virginia, Virginia, into southern Pennsylvania. That is a good solid foot to 16 inches. And then you see another swath of that, clipping New Jersey into parts of upstate New York. Anything north of Albany is upstate, right? So, and then into Massachusetts there. So that's another swath of a good 12 to 16 inches. And really all of New England on this particular model getting a foot-ish of snow. The second snowstorm for the plains into the Great Lakes, the bullseye on this map is northern Kansas into Nebraska and Iowa, where I live. So again, we're talking here anywhere from 8 to 16 inches in this area, and that it does move into Wisconsin and also into Michigan. So that is the Canadian. And then also you can look on the Oregon coast. We've got some Oregon Coast Range. We see some snow there as well, and the Washington Olympics and the Olympic Peninsula. Even more so in that area as we switch to the European model. The European model for the East Coast, very similar to what the Canadian was showing, maybe a little bit more snow for parts of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, and maybe a little bit less snow for Massachusetts, but still a lot of snow for New England. Again, we're talking 8 inches to a foot and a half from basically West Virginia, Virginia through Pennsylvania, all the way up into Maine. So that's a lot. The second snowstorm, the bullseye on the European, is mostly Kansas, and then a pretty thick swath through Missouri, through Illinois, into Chicago, and into Michigan, and then up into Canada. And so that is the European GFS, which I'm liking less because I want snow as a snow lover in Iowa. And the GFS has less for me here, but still 2 good snowstorms. Again, this is all 3 are very similar for the East Coast. So just some minor differences. So confidence is going up on that storm, and we'll show you quickly on the models here as we go through them here in just a bit. And then for the Midwest storm, this bullseye is anywhere from southeastern Colorado, Kansas especially, through parts of Missouri, right through Illinois, again into Chicago, again into Michigan, eastern Ohio is part of both of these storms, and then into up into Canada, eh? Good day, eh? All right, let's take a look. We'll start with the GFS. The reason why I'm liking the GFS so much is the GFS got the Christmas blizzard for Nebraska and South Dakota. The GFS was by far the best. Will that continue into these 2 storms? I don't know. We'll find out. Like I said, I just showed you the snowfall amounts on January 10th at 6 p.m. in the evening. We'll know more on January 11th as it goes. All right, we're on the GFS. This is the latest run, the 6Z run, and we're starting today, the 2nd of January at 15Z, which is 9 o'clock this morning, an hour from now as I'm recording. Not much going on. And then we see those showers erupting in eastern Texas. We see another storm approaching the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Actually, most of the activity here in Northern California. We are almost to the 3rd. So as we get to the 3rd, we see more light snow up here in the UP of Michigan. We see more snow in the Sierra Nevada. We see more showers and storms moving through Louisiana as this low gets formed off the Gulf of Mexico coast. Hello, good morning. Maybe another cup of coffee is in order. Anyway, we've been showing you this low the last, this is my second video on this channel. I've done 4 or 5 videos on these 2 storms so far. And this evolution seems to be pretty solid. So this is the 3rd at noonish East or Central Time. And the showers and storms continue to move through the southeast. Now, our first snowstorm getting its act together in the Four Corners, more specifically northwest New Mexico, with snow showers in the Four Corners. And then let's move forward on this storm because this one gets interesting as it gets a little stronger. Kansas getting some light snow, some heavier snow. We're now on the 5th of January. And Louisiana getting hit again with some heavy rain as some light snow moves through Kansas, and then we see some light snow up here in the Intermountain West, a little bit of light snow in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. And as this low continues to form, this one is much further south than it was showing in the last couple of days, and some heavy rain, thunderstorms, and Alabama, Georgia, and a little bit of snow mixing in as you get into the Appalachians, Asheville about here, maybe a little snow for you, light snow continuing across parts of the West. But this is the main event. Now, it does start to move northeast. We're getting heavier snows now in Kentucky and into Indiana. And as it continues, this low gets strong. And so we're seeing a lot of rain, a lot of wind into Maryland, starting to move into New Jersey. Heavy snow now in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. This is the 6th at 6 p.m. Central Time. Our next storm already moving into the Pacific Northwest. The East Coast storm pretty wound up, but moves offshore. So we do have a time of some very heavy snow and some very heavy winds and even some very heavy rain for parts of the Northeast. But yeah. We should see pretty good snows in Massachusetts, parts of New York, into Pennsylvania with a lot of wind. New Jersey, I'm looking at you too, as it exits and takes the precipitation with it. Behind it, light snow, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York off the lakes. And then our next storm, Foreman. We are now on the 7th of January at noon Central Time. And we'll see that get its act together as it moves into the plains. So we've got snow now coming down in Kansas, pretty good clip. Southern Iowa as well. I live about there, so this is all right. This is the evening of the 9th. And then lots of showers and storms, heavy rain, all the way from Arkansas, southern Missouri, parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and East Texas. But a little bit of snow coming pretty far south on the backside. Lubbock, Texas, will you get snow? I know when I lived there, I'd be like watching this like a hawk. All right, so the storm cranking up, and this is a more southern solution, but the northwestern side still has some decent snows and some decent wind. As this 975 low forms, we're going to have a lot of wind around it and plenty of moisture with it. And so the snow will be on the heavy side, the rain will be on the heavy side, and we're seeing even some heavy snow in northern Virginia with this solution. And I'd call this moderate snow, but blowing around for Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, and near Omaha, Nebraska. This is the 9th, the morning of the 9th. And as we continue, then the heavy snow moves now. Later on in the day, in the 9th, we see the heavy snow and very windy for Chicago, for southern Michigan, for Illinois into Missouri. And then we see the heavy rainfall too. And then we see very heavy snows now in for Ohio and into Pennsylvania as well. And as we continue, very heavy rainfall and wind moving into New England, or at least New Jersey and Pennsylvania, trailing along the coast of Northern Carolina, Northern Carolina and Virginia. And so whatever snow you got here is getting heavy rain on top of it. So we'll have to watch for flooding concerns there. And then we lift into Canada, which moves the rain further north into New England. So something to watch for. And again, light snow, but blowing around, and snow on the backside coming all the way down to Kentucky. So that's our second snowstorm as it continues to move up, bringing rain in New England. So that's the GFS model. And that's what we've been showing for consistency, to see if there's any consistency in this model, and there's not. So it's taken the second storm a little further south again, or I should say the third storm. So let's take a look real quick, and I will have to go faster, but let's take a look at, say, the Canadian's my favorite because it has the best solution for me as a snow lover. So let's take a look at that. All right, the Canadian loaded up here, and we're starting, again, this is the latest run, and we're starting actually earlier today. So this is midnight. All right, moving forward in time. On the 3rd now, we're 6 a.m. on the 3rd Central Time. Heavy rain moving into Louisiana with this first storm, with that low off the Gulf Coast. Heavy rain continues across the south and dissipates as the low moves offshore. Our second storm now forming in the Four Corners and in northeastern New Mexico, with some snow now starting to break out on this is midnight, January 4th, midnight, moving into the 5th. So we got some pretty good snows coming now in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, and in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. And as we move forward, we've got some ice here, looks like, as we get into North Carolina and also Kentucky. This is the morning of the 6th, and light snow up here in the Great Lakes and intermittent light snow in the Intermountain West. And this looks like ice. So I don't know, man. That's probably no fun. For eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, ice, and also into Maryland. And then as this low continues, we get some snow finally busting out here in Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey, New York City. And then ice, well, actually heavier snow and some ice behind that. Into Virginia, West Virginia, mostly Virginia. This is the 6th, the evening of the 6th of January. So that's only 4 days away. So confidence pretty high on this East Coast storm. Just your individual zoomed in details are going to make a big difference, but it's going to be a pretty strong storm with some pretty good snows for some, pretty good rains for others, and lots of wind. I think northern New Jersey into New York City, into southern New York, into Massachusetts and Connecticut, and then back Pennsylvania and the Virginias, probably looking at the bullseye from this storm as far as snow goes, snow and ice. Now we're looking at the snowstorm in the plains. This is the morning of the 8th, 6 a.m. Snow busting out in western Iowa. Yay! Nebraska, back into eastern Colorado and parts of Wyoming, and lingering down here in the boot heel of New Mexico as well. So as this storm gets its act together and starts cranking, you see the winds really picking up. You see the snow rates really picking up down near Omaha and south, down near Harlan, Iowa, where I live, and south central Iowa too. So a lot, snow rates picking up and the wind picking up. Also northern Kansas getting in on this. Rain for Missouri and Illinois and Arkansas and Louisiana and points on south. Storm continuing to crank. Lots of snow, lots of wind for Iowa. Back into Nebraska, lighter snow. This is midnight on the 8th. Light snow for most of Wisconsin, a little heavier south. And some heavier snow moving into, like, say, Rockford, Illinois. And towards Chicago, this rain should be turning to snow. And I was wrong. It stays rain. And then some heavy rain, lighter snow, but heavy winds across Iowa still, and also into Wisconsin and also Michigan. See a little bit more snow for you there in Pennsylvania. Then some ice for Virginia, and then heavy rain further south in South Carolina. And that heavier rain doesn't move as far north on this model, but it eventually does. And again, we get rain on top of the snow that you had in New England. And then there's another storm to watch behind all this. All right, real quick, do we have time? Should we take a look at our last model? It's the European. Again, the latest run. We're starting with this morning and moving through, and you see the showers and storms along the Gulf Coast. That's pretty much a lock, I would say. All the models agree, and they've been consistent for days. Our first snowstorm, this is eventually going to move across Tennessee and up the East Coast. We'll see what it does. We're January 5th now. And some heavy rain, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, snow starting to break out, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, a little bit of ice in here for Virginia, heavy rain further south. And then as it strengthens and starts moving up the coast, we're starting to see heavy snow, Pennsylvania, into the Virginias, and a lot of wind, and a lot of rain along the coast, and a lot of wind. This eventually does change into heavy snow, northern New Jersey, into New York, into Pennsylvania still. And as it goes up the coast, the snow rates go down, the wind is still heavy, all the way from New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, Massachusetts, and then we slowly move out to sea as the next storm forms. And now we're on the 8th, moving into January 8th. And this is the European, so further south, light snow from Minnesota through parts of Iowa and Nebraska, but the heavier snow now, Texas Panhandle up into western Kansas, rain out ahead of the storm. And as it gets wound up, so the very strong storm, very heavy snow near the low, Kansas getting some very heavy snow with a lot of wind. That's moving into Missouri, lighter snow, still a lot of wind, into Iowa and parts of Nebraska. And then this takes a more easterly route. So if you live where I do, in Iowa, this can be a lot less snow, plenty of wind to go with it, and a lot more snow in Missouri and plenty of wind to go with it. And you've got a mix here in Chicago. And then Chicago gets some very heavy snow with a lot of wind with it. In fact, most of Illinois as it moves out of Missouri, and also Michigan starting to feel the effects of heavy snow and heavy wind. And then the rain falling on top of the snow that fell in the east as that storm exits into Canada. So you get the picture. I'd say confidence is high that we have two snowstorms coming. The one on the East Coast looks pretty much like a lock, and a lot of the models are similar. It's going to have a lot of wind and a lot of snow. Fine details on where the snow falls, but looks like New York City, western New Jersey, into Pennsylvania, the Virginias, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Might be close to blizzard conditions. And then on the second snowstorm, just depends on which model. We don't have consistency on whether the storm goes south and east or whether it goes further north. And so will the bullseye will be Iowa, where I live, into Nebraska, or will it be further south, Kansas, Missouri, and even Oklahoma? So these are the questions that will be answered over time. I'll have an update tonight, and we'll keep you updated as we get closer to these storms. Thank you so much for tuning in to my new channel, The Weather Mike, and we will see you tonight, or this afternoon, or this evening. Okay, later.